The stretch and the pitch from over. Swing and a miss! He struck him out! And the Griffins win their first ever PSAC championship. And they are dogpiling right where Seton Hill did back in 2010 when they won their first ever conference title. 10-4, over and out. The Griffins have won the PSAC title. The defending PSAC champions are ready to get back on the field this weekend as Seton Hill University baseball opens up the 2018 season in North Carolina. We'll be talking a whole lot about this year's Griffs and last year's Griffs as we welcome you to the Seton Hill University Baseball 2018 season preview show. Good afternoon. I'm Dan Flickinger, and I'm being joined by the man that is 4 wins away from 500 in his career, Mark Marizaldi. And Maz, we have so much to get into today. First of all, we are recording this year's season preview show from the Boyle Health Science Building, which opened about 1.5 to 2 years ago, Maz. And we picked this room because you folks, I know we're kind of maybe blocking the window a little bit, but the new Seton Hill baseball field is just behind us here in the window, so that's pretty cool. And Maz, a lot of reasons to be excited this year. That is one of them. You guys are also coming off of a PSAC championship, and you open the season this weekend, so a lot to look forward to this year, I know.
Yeah, we're excited. Obviously, we'd like to build on some of the momentum that we finished the season with last year with a PSAC championship, but it's in the rearview mirror now, and we're just trying to look forward. It's a new group of guys. It's a new team, new challenges. And new opportunities too, with one of them, sitting right behind us. One of the things, we kind of have a checklist for our guys of things we want to achieve, goals for the team this year, and one of them is to go undefeated at home and really protect this brand new ballpark that's, in my opinion, probably the best in the PSAC. So, a lot of excitement. We really started to look ahead and prepare for the 2018 season the minute we walked off the field in Jamestown. But this season preview show is kind of the official, kickoff, at least for me. The 2018 season is well underway. When me and you sit down here, and
this is your first therapy session of the year, right? I mean, you don't need it yet, but this kicks everything off.
It does. It reminds me that I have to make lineups and do all those things that managers do. So, but it's good. It's good. We'll be on a bus, I guess, at this time tomorrow on our way down south, and it's exciting. Our guys it's been a long time coming. This is a group that's been so much fun to work with. They've gelled from the first week being together in the fall. So the anticipation has been building for probably about 5 or 6 months, and I'm excited to see what these guys can do this year.
Well, we have so much to get into. We first want to let everybody know. We want to thank, first of all, our returning Griffin viewers to not only this show, but the supporters of our broadcast. And we also want to welcome in all the new parents and supporters of the Griffins baseball team. We'll be broadcasting all of the games when Seton Hill goes to Florida, and then we'll be broadcasting 7 to 8 doubleheaders here at home, the conference doubleheaders, and then all of the Seton Hill baseball playoff games, and hopefully a lot of them once again this year. Maz, Seton Hill baseball has made it to the NCAA tournament 8 straight times. PSAC championship last season. Again, 4 wins away from 500. So there's a lot to be certainly proud of, Maz, coming into this season. There's no other PSAC school that can say they've made it to 8 straight NCAA tournaments. And I know we've talked about this a lot on the broadcast, but maybe as fans, they kind of take it for granted. Oh, you guys are going to be in the NCAA tournament again. But there's so much work that goes into that in a very competitive PSAC.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think that's why kids go to college, whether they're going to play basketball, soccer, football, is to be able to have a chance to be on that big stage. And playing in an NCAA tournament, no matter what level of college athletics, is a pretty special accomplishment. It's a benchmark. For us to do it 8 times in a row is unbelievable. We have about 36, 37 teams in our region, and only 7, now it's 7, get to that level. So it's not an easy thing. And you mentioned being 500 wins away, and a lot of people say, well, that's just a number. It is, but it's also I guess a tribute to so many different people that have sacrificed so much for all of those wins, starting with our assistant coaches, all the way down to our parents, obviously our alumni. So it's a neat number to get to for our program, but more than anything else, it's a reminder for us to really look back and appreciate all of the hard work and opportunities that have come along the way.
And with you being the only head coach in the history of the program, I mean, to put the spotlight on the program, it's something you have to be really proud of, because again, you've been here since the beginning when there was no field out there. So it has to make you even more proud.
Yeah. I mean, to think about where we're at now and what these players have in terms of their training and facilities and just everything. But to be able to connect that to the group that came here when there was no field, those guys who got this program off the ground, those guys who got us to a World Series in our third year, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing now without that solid foundation. And, they may have only been here and part of maybe 50 or 100 of those wins, but they're responsible. Those guys that started this program, they've earned all 500 of those.
And those guys continue to give back, too. I mean, when you look at the alumni at Seton Hill baseball compared to, the other programs in this conference, the other programs have had a baseball program for a long time. Seton Hill hasn't, so there's not that many alumni. But I'll stack our alumni up against anybody because they give back so much to the program.
They're like our biggest fans and also our biggest critics, which I can really appreciate. It reminds me each and every year that we need to continue to operate at the standards that those guys set a long time ago.
Maz, I want to ask you this, though. How many wins is Kevin McCarthy a part of? Because it has to be close to 500.
Yeah, right? real quick math. I think Mike, the first McCarthy was here our third season. So he missed year 1 and 2, which was 17 and 27. So 496 minus 44. So he's up there. He got about 450 wins himself. Right. Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about Tom and the McCarthys a little bit later on. But before we get a chance to talk about this year's team, let's take a look back at last year and all of the adversity that Seton Hill overcame to do what they did. It was just incredible. Just when I think that the story for the program couldn't get any better, you guys go out and do what you did last year, Maz. Just to give people an idea of what Seton Hill went through last year, Seton Hill came into the season, first of all, as a young, inexperienced group after losing 9 key seniors to graduation. Then, just weeks before the season, an incredible rash of injuries hit. First of all, Garrett Verbanek, one of the best shortstops in the region, a senior, blows out his elbow. And then a transfer infielder, Andrew Chuba, also tears his UCL. Both guys, they played a little bit early in the season, just hitting and running, but they were basically out for the year. So Chris Law gets the chance to start at shortstop the first game of the year, and he breaks his foot. So I'm not talking about random injuries throughout the offseason. All these injuries we're talking about happened just weeks leading up to the season. It was just incredible. Ace pitcher Perry Delavella hurt his rotator cuff last year, only started 6 games. He was never 100% despite gutting it out in a couple of playoff performances by him. And also promising freshman Kenny Wells gets hit in the head in an inter-squad game, and he has to pitch with a helmet on the whole year. Tyler Mortar breaks his fingers lifting weights, right before the season starts. So it took him a while to get back into it. And, of course, had to be on his pitching hand, too. So all of these things happen, the injuries, the inexperience, the inconsistent play during the regular season. You guys go out and win your first PSAC championship. I think it just goes to show the heart and the foundation that this coaching staff has also laid, and they mentioned the alumni and everything, beforehand. A lot of heart showed by the guys last year, and just an incredible season.
Well, those injuries you mentioned, they weren't things that we could kind of plan around because, like you said, the timing of it, we had to literally adjust on the fly like a week before the season started. And that meant playing some freshmen who just flat out weren't ready to play. They got thrown into the fire. They battled through and learned through their mistakes, which, looking back, by the end of the year, that helped them and it helped us. But it required a next man up mentality, whether they were ready or not. We did not have a really big senior class to lean on last year, although the seniors we did have did a tremendous job leading. we just had to. We were going into the season relying on youth and inexperience, and that just got compounded early. So the biggest thing is our guys stuck together. They believed in each other. They were able to kind of pass the baton from the injured guy to the next guy who was healthy. And you saw that as the season unfolded. And in the conference tournament, you've got heroic performances by, guys like Bailey Gimanis and Kenny Wells and Craig Lewis. I mean, there's 3 freshmen right there. And then you had some other guys really, really step up too. Brian Dabney was a strong reliever for us out of the bullpen when we needed him to be late in the season. Joe Schaefer, who really wasn't 100% all year, he gutted it out. So it was more of a character-building season for us than anything else.
And those are the injuries that I talked about. But as you mentioned, like Schaefer and probably a handful of other guys, if not more, were playing with injuries like Tom McCarthy and like some other guys too.
Yeah, no question. And I think, we have some injuries now, but we knew about those coming into the season. They were ones that in certain positions we knew this guy would be injured or set back a few weeks, so let's develop this guy so he's ready to play. That really wasn't the case last year, but at the end of the day, there's constantly going to be guys who seize opportunities. And I think that's just because of the way we prepare them each and every day to be ready for those chances.
And it had to make you feel even better, Maz, to win a PSAC championship when you consider what you guys went through during the season. I mean, we talked a lot on the air and off the air about the inconsistent play. A lot of times last year, it didn't look like Seton Hill baseball, and obviously what it looks like better than anybody. And I know it was frustrating at times for the staff and probably the players, for that matter, to go through that. So it had to feel even better to finish off that year. I know you didn't get to where you wanted to go, losing in the regional, but at least to win a PSAC championship had to be maybe even more satisfying.
Yeah, it was. Last year was a year more than any other ones that tested, I guess, my own personal patience and the patience of our players too. We weren't experiencing success consistently. A lot of ups and downs, like you mentioned. A lot of long late night talks with my wife. God bless her. I had to bounce so many different things off of her, mostly frustration. And when we won that PSAC championship, I just remember embracing her and crying because she knows the battles and the struggles that we went through as a team. But at the end of the day, it's baseball, and I'm just really blessed to have been on that journey with those guys last year, and I think it's going to help us this year. Absolutely.
A lot of returners to this year's team, and hey, let's talk about this year's team. That's why we're here. That's why we're in the Boyle Sciences Center today and in front of the Seton Hill Beautiful Field. By the way, maybe not look as beautiful right now because it's cloudy and rainy outside, but hopefully by the spring, well, we all know what the weather's probably going to be like. Hopefully we'll get some good days, at least a few this spring. Definitely coming up this weekend and in Florida. We certainly hope for that as well. But let's turn our attention to this year's team. Matt, seems like there's a lot of optimism this year. You bring back a lot of experienced position players. Pitching staff isn't as experienced, but you bring back promising young arms along with a couple of veterans that are really good. I had a chance to talk to some guys, some of your leaders, MP Buckley, Ty Sullivan, and there's a lot of work to be done. And they don't want to go as far as to say we're going to be really, really good this year, but I feel like talking to them that there's that sense that you guys have a really good opportunity to have a really good season this year.
We do. Especially when you look on paper, when you start to get some guys back like Chuba and Verbanik and a healthy Perry, you kind of consider that added firepower that you might not have had last year. But I think we got a lot of sleepers in this group too. I think when you look at our team on paper, it's easy to pick out some guys that you anticipate doing well, the Tom McCarthys and some of these other guys that have put up numbers and been part of championships. But there's going to be some other guys, filling some other roles that people don't know about. You mentioned our pitching staff being inexperienced. Definitely is. We graduated over 220 innings from our pitching staff. Somebody's got to throw those innings. I think when Perry steps on the mound to start every weekend, people are going to know what they're getting. When we follow up with Pat Monteverdi or Michael Bria or Jared Cola or Neil McDermott, people are going to say, who the heck are these guys? But they are going to be fantastic additions to our team. So, A lot of returners, a lot of new guys. It's an interesting mix that I think really complements each other well.
Really big roster this year, around 50 guys. Your biggest since you've started here, would you say?
Yes.
Pretty certain of that.
We've come close, but not this high. Yeah,
right.
we're at about 47 right now.
Okay. So I would guess that had to have bred some really good competition for positions, because there's only 9 positions. You throw in a DH, I suppose, but and then of course on the mound as well. I know not as many guys come back, but there's still some great competition there too. So kind of talk about what the benefit of having a big roster is, Maz, and also maybe some of the challenges of getting guys work and innings and everything.
Well, DJ and Fo and I, we all had many talks as we battled through last year and the injuries, and we pretty much vowed, like, we're never going to do this again. Let's make sure that, if guys go down, we got other people ready. So there was that idea of boosting the roster a little bit in certain positions, but the biggest thing is that we try to recruit 1 year ahead. And what I mean by that is we have a class of 14 seniors this year, so they will need replaced. We don't want to replace seniors with freshmen. It's too much of a challenge, I think. So we brought a lot of guys we anticipate replacing those seniors are already on the team and in the program now. So they have this freshman year, not to go out there and they have to produce, but to be around these older guys and learn and get better every day. So next year, they are more than prepared. They've been here a year to step in. The second thing that I think has boosted that roster is all the red shirts that we've had. I think I counted 14 guys, which is about a third of our roster almost, that are red shirts this year. And only 2, I believe, are non-medical related. So we have a lot of guys that have suffered injuries at some point during their career and have decided they want to stay here and they want to finish their career. So a lot of fifth-year guys that would have graduated and probably put our roster right now, we projected it to be about 41, 42, but we have a lot of fifth-year guys that ended up coming back.
Sure. Don McGreeth, Garrett Verbanek, just to name a few.
Yeah, Buckley.
Guys. Of course, MP, he was redshirted too, so.
Yep.
Definitely. When you look at a big roster like that and you look at, the recruiting class, I mean, you've done a fantastic job, obviously, throughout your career, but I don't know, has interest spiked at all after a PSAC championship? Have you noticed guys, more interested in the program than ever before after the PSAC title?
I think there is recognition and interest that's increased from local guys. Pennsylvania kids that might follow the PSAC a little bit more closely, they got a good handle on who's the best team or who won the PSAC. I think going to the World Series just a couple of years ago has allowed us to tap into different markets, especially Ohio. As you know, we have a lot of great players out of Ohio. So being on a national stage brings you more regional recognition. Being able to win the PSAC, the biggest Division II conference in the country, holds a lot of weight when you're going around and recruiting in Pennsylvania.
Well, let's talk about this year's team, and we can start with the pitching staff. Maz already talked about the fact that you lose 220 innings between Zach Martinelli, Joe Schaefer, and Tyler Mortar, and also Matt Ober and Brandon Wright, who were more role guys there, but really lose some good veterans and some starters, and I know they've also come out of the bullpen in separate times too, Maz, and definitely going to be a tough group to replace.
Yeah, I think the dynamic with at least 3 of those guys, Schaefer, Mortar, and Martinelli, is they filled different roles at different points in their career, and at some point they all filled a really big role. They were all in the rotation at some point, actually last year as seniors. 3 seniors, you lose 3 guys out of your 4-man rotation. It changes everything with your pitching staff, but kind of next man up mentality. I mean, we will certainly miss their contributions, but I think at the end of the day, we've had some guys kind of waiting in the wings. Guys like Michael Bria, Donnie McGreeth. You saw him towards the end of last year assume a much bigger role, winning a PSAC championship game for us. Getting some other guys back healthy besides Bria. Guys like Nick Boehm. Brian Dabney probably see a bigger role this year. Bryce Spack. The combination of some returning players getting bigger roles and then adding in some new pieces to that pitching staff too.
And looking at those pieces that graduated, I think back to last year when JoJo threw the no-no at the in Florida, the first game in Florida, and what a play by Tom McCarthy to make it stand. I mean, that was just an amazing feeling. And, it was funny, actually, after the game, because I said it was the first ever no-hitter in Seton Hill history, and you said, no, that's not true. But then we asked Jason Green, and it was true that it was the first no-hitter in Seton Hill baseball history because of the fact that I think someone threw a no-hitter, but you guys lost or something?
That's correct.
Earlier in the program.
We had a combined no-hitter that we lost on a wild pitch.
Wow. So do you remember the game pretty well?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that was maybe our first or second season.
Yeah. No way.
Yeah, it was a guy scored from second base on a wild pitch, and we lost 1-0.
The ball just kick around or something near the bat?
Yeah, our catch was a little slow.
Yeah, I see. That's pretty funny. So Joe throws, I guess we can say the first no-hitter. I guess we can go borderline with that because they didn't win the game. But, and then what he did against Westchester, too, for you guys to win the first game of the PSAC tournament. I know maybe his numbers didn't look great, but he pitched well against the eventual national champion. And then you look at what Tyler Mortar did throughout his career and was a swing guy for you, a very important piece of the pitching staff. And then Zach Martinelli, who I know had an up and down years, but his junior year was fantastic. And I think that he really improved from his freshman season, it seemed like for him.
I think the example that those three guys in particular, as well as Matt Ober and Brandon Wright, the example that they set for all the guys they played with and the pitchers that are here now is that you never know what's going to happen, and you always have to be ready. Like the different rules that they assumed. There was days where those guys didn't have their best stuff, and they went out and they grinded for us. But their contributions, statistically kind of show themselves, but they were just such dependable leaders and dependable pitchers for us during their careers.
Give us an overview of the pitching staff. I know you've mentioned guys already. What kind of dynamics are at play for this year's group?
Well, we were fortunate to bring a guy in, Pat Monteverdi. He's a sophomore transfer, originally from Fox Chapel, a guy that we recruited out of high school that had a great season at Virginia Wesleyan last year as a freshman. Left-hander, be a nice addition to the rotation. One of the best local competitors here, Jared Kolar, won a Whitfield State Championship at Latrobe. Mm-hmm. We think he has the ability to pitch as a starter for us. Don McGreeth, who has filled a lot of different roles during his career as well. He should compete, for a rotation spot, starting job. And then Michael Bria is a guy coming off of a 2-year red shirt. He's had a little bit longer road of recovery with his Tommy John. He looks to be in great shape and ready to go for us. So those are all candidates for starting pitching opportunities. And then out of the bullpen, we have 2 left-handers. Bryce Back with some good experience, had a great summer with Butler, Blue Sox, and then Brian Dabney, who, again, was one of those guys that got thrown into the fire last year and competed really well and matured a lot for us. And then, in my opinion, we have 2 of the best right-handers out of the bullpen, maybe in the region or the country, and Neil McDermott and Kenny Wells. Neil's a guy who he's such a tremendous athlete, and we knew that in the recruiting process, and we knew if we could get our hands on him and he can get acclimated to kind of our system here, he would just go through the roof, and we started to see that. Big velocity jump, off speed is really developing. He's a great competitor. He's going to have a special career for us and fill a good role this year. And then obviously Kenny Wells, we saw what he was capable of last year. We're hoping that he can just continue to evolve and fine tune as an elite pitcher. Having those 2 guys, and both Neil and Kenny can start too, but I just think they make our bullpen better than anybody we're ever going to face this year.
So you would say starting out the season, those 2 guys will be coming out of the bullpen. I know things can change with injuries and production, I suppose, but in terms of the start of the year, that's probably where they're going to slot in?
I think so. Okay. Yep, at least to start.
Well, talk about, you mentioned Perry Dallavella. Pitched through a rotator cuff issue last year, some gutsy performances in the playoffs. Was never 100%, even though his whatever he was last year was still pretty good, 75% or whatever it was. How's he feeling right now? How's he throwing right now as you guys enter the season this weekend?
He is itching to get on the mound. Even though he did throw a little bit for us last year, you could tell it was frustrating because he didn't have his best stuff. He had to pitch through some fatigue and just wasn't 100%, and he is now. He took the whole summer off, went through kind of a rest rehab regimen over the course of probably 3 to 4 months. Started firing it back up late in the fall, and his stuff is good to go. He's ready to compete, ready to go out and prove he's one of the better pitchers in the region for us.
Always love watching him pitch, and I kind of compared in terms of how quick they work when I had a chance to call a lot of Jared Kolar's games last year, because I felt like Jared last year, and like Perry does, they throw a lot of strikes, they work quick, they pitch to contact at times, and if they're pitching well, the game's probably going to go pretty quickly.
Yeah, he's had some sub 2 hour games.
Yeah.
He's fun to call. It's almost like, if you're calling pitches like Coach Cannon does for him, it's like a video game. You just press a button and there's the baseball.
There's the baseball.
Yeah.
That makes it pretty easy. So we talk about Perry, and I know we mentioned Kenny Wells a couple of times, but we talk about this fantastic story for Seton Hill baseball last year, and it was. And you can't tell that story without Kenny Wells, Coach. And you and Jordan Blair went through it with him. He goes from having seizures not long before the season starts. He blows a save his first outing of the year. He goes from all of that, going through those things in his life, to winning a PSAC tournament MVP by the end of the year. It's just absolutely incredible, and you can't say enough about Kenny and the way that he came back, and without Kenny, you guys probably don't have the rings that you do. Yeah,
no question, he changed the outcome of our season. But the biggest accomplishment he has right now is that he's alive and healthy. I mean, and what that's done for Kenny, obviously, he's a different outlook on life now. He's much more appreciative of just being at the baseball field every day. If you come and watch him or get to know him, you'll notice that he's a ball of energy that just is so grateful. But I think that's rubbed off. I mean, he shares his story, and we are able to share his story with other guys on our team to just reinforce the fact that you never know. Any day on the baseball field could be your last, and you just need to embrace it and be grateful for it.
Can he switch back to a regular hat now?
I think he is going to.
Okay.
Yeah, we encourage him to keep the helmet just because he's
right.
The helmet, the hair, the beard. It's an intimidating
come on,
look.
Man.
Yeah.
Like Rick Vaughn. I think Greeny fired up Wild Thing a few times. Not that he's wild. He's not wild like Rick Vaughn, but he still has that
personality.
Persona. Yeah. He has that persona like him. So I know he fired that up a few times last year. So hopefully a few more this year.
Another guy who kind of goes on. Under the radar for us, I guess, a little bit, that's overcome some injuries and different things and had an impact last year was Pat Boyer. We had to go so deep into our pitching staff with all the injuries and setbacks and stuff, and Pat's a guy that's been with the program and busted his rear end for so many years. And
another red shirt guy.
Yeah, he was a red shirt guy. Yeah. He didn't throw a ton for us, but just so impactful. He was a back end of the bullpen guy that got thrown into the fire again, and I think he ended up going 2-0 for us with a save and pitched in some big game situations. So just another story of a guy, paying his dues and seizing his opportunities.
Pat, a local guy out of Greensburg, Salem. Don McReath, we mentioned Donnie already, returns, I should say, as a starter swing guy there. And, we talked about the options out of the bullpen and Bryce Spack and Brian Dabney. Those guys just certainly adding to the depth of the bullpen and perhaps the rotation for Donnie this year.
Yeah. Donnie's a guy that, again, another redshirt guy, but you could see last year he got better and better and better. He didn't start the season in our rotation or even close to it, but by the end we're handing him the ball, asking him to go win a championship game. So, he's another guy that, he's experienced. I think he's playing for a lot this year. He knows this is his last shot at it. He's been so dedicated. He's a great leader on our team, and his stuff has gotten really, really good too. You could tell like what he's invested. He's throwing all his chips on the table for this last senior season.
And when you dig deep into the playoffs, because when you talk about the Atlantic Regional or even the PSAC tournament, if you guys get to where you want to get, and that's the championship game, you do have to dig deep into your bullpen or into your rotation. So you usually do have guys coming through that maybe didn't get a whole lot of work in the regular season, right?
Yeah, and even in Florida too. And that's the great thing about Florida is you find out really early what your depth situation is like. And I mean, you've been around and followed us, Dan. When you get into the postseason, there's some teams that are digging into their pitching staff and pulling out guys that haven't pitched all year, or maybe haven't pitched in 3-4 weeks. Teams that might not play a lot of midweek games, and test the depth of their pitching staff. So we try to give those guys, those number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys on the pitching staff, we know we're going to need them at some point. We test them early in Florida. Another freshman, Ben Vicini, he's a guy who's, not a highly recruited kid, but
put up some nice numbers at West Shamokin.
He did. And he showed a lot of promise and development for us. He'll be a guy that's going to have to eat some innings in some capacity. So we're excited about the depth and the quality of the pitching staff.
So we talk about Donnie, Bryce, and Brian Dabney. I know you briefly mentioned Bria, who also I know is competing for a starting spot, and Nick Boehm also, those guys battling injuries last year. I mean, where do you kind of see them slotting in this year?
A little bit similar to where Donnie was last year, I think, as a swing type guy that could maybe be a weekend starter, most definitely a midweek starter, and also pitch out of the bullpen. So we kind of just tell guys, here's where you fall. Here's our 12 pitchers. You're somewhere in the middle. But as you've seen, it changes throughout the year.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. Exciting new arms. You mentioned Pat Monteverde. I just want to give his stats from last year. He played at Virginia Wesleyan, a Division II school, went 7-2 with a 1.96 ERA, had 60 strikeouts in 83 innings. And I know he's looking at a starting role right now for you, Maz, but a lefty, an important guy to get, I know, into this program with losing a few guys. Did you go into the offseason looking for maybe someone that could help out right away because of the starters that you lost, or did Pat, I don't want to say fell into your lap, but what was the connection there with Pat?
Well, just the relationship we developed with him and the recruiting process out of high school. We didn't necessarily go looking for him. He kind of reached back out to us when he decided he wanted to transfer, and the timing was right. The opportunity was right. I mean, we couldn't hide the fact that we were losing 220 innings. Yeah. So he saw an opportunity to be able to come in here and contribute, and it's worked out great.
And we mentioned Neil McDermott, Jared Kolar, a couple of local guys, and we mentioned the spike of interest in the program and the PSAC championship and everything. And I know how excited you were when these two guys decided to sign. And, you have some other local guys that are on the team this year in this freshman class, like, Luke Whalen, Alex Shaw, also from Greensburg-Salem. I know he can maybe be a reliever for you as we go forward here, coming back from a wrestling injury right now. But, talking about that local recruiting, I know it's important for you to get out to multiple places, but it has to be nice to lock down these guys. And also in the next recruiting class now, freshmen next year, you also have some local guys too.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Fedor, Hempfield
Jordan
guy.
Fedor, I knew I was missing somebody.
Yeah, he's here now, and it's been a little bit of a shift when you look back at maybe somewhere around 2000, maybe 12 to 16. I think most of our recruits were from Ohio, or at least out of state. We didn't have a whole lot of WPIL guys during a few years run. Not intentionally. It's just, you go where the players are. But now it's kind of shifted in the other direction. We've gone WPIL heavy, I guess, in the current freshman class, as well as next year's recruiting class. Some more local guys, Nick Zona from Norwin, Zaya DeAndreth from Hempfield, and then, some Pittsburgh WPIL guys, NA, Mount Lebanon. So we're kind of getting back to our roots, but I think that kind of spins back to what you had mentioned before about people in Pennsylvania recognizing us being one of the best teams in the PSAC and in the region, and now those kids want to stay close to home.
Well, let's move to the position players. A lot of guys coming back with experience, unlike last year, I guess. But what do you expect from your lineup this year?
I think that we have the ability to kind of stick to what it has made us successful in the past. Timely hitting, aggressive base running. We have an interesting mix of athleticism and power, which can be really good if used the right way. We do bring back a very experienced lineup. In position player-wise, we lost Adam Farida, who was a part-time starter for us, and that's it. And then we get back some of these other guys, Chuba and Verbanik and Carney. So we are deep at every position, I would say, which has, like you mentioned, bred really good competition. but it makes us just very confident and comfortable knowing that there's a lot of different guys that can get jobs done for us.
Do you have any idea what your lineup is going to be on Saturday?
No. I'll figure that out at
Put
breakfast.
The guys up there and
that's it.
Throw darts at the
dartboard
at the names.
Maybe arm wrestle for starting spots.
There you go. Yeah, you should have that. I will broadcast that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll have the graphics up there and everything. It'll look great.
Yeah, I do have I have a difficult job this year, with so many good players. My goal is to just don't screw anything up.
We haven't yet, Maz. So. Garrett Verbanek played 10 games last year where he just hit and ran, couldn't throw because of the UCL, and then he ends up hurting his shoulder. What's the plan with G? And just talk about the element that he provides, when he's healthy. I mean, heck, he wasn't healthy last year. He still is home for you guys to win against a really good team in Grand Valley State last year in Florida. If you weren't listening last year, well, maybe you can kind of take us through exactly what happened. I think it was Colella was at the plate, hit a fly ball to center.
Sacrifice fly.
Yeah, ended up being a sacrifice fly, but Verbanek was on second base. So he tagged and moved to third. This was in the bottom of the seventh inning. Tagged and moved to third. And then the throw came into third. He was easily safe, and the third baseman had the ball, gave it to the pitcher, and the pitcher turned his back, right?
Yeah, the pitcher just kind of took his glove off, started rubbing the ball up, and waiting for the next guy to get to the plate. And it was a live ball situation, and Garrett just took off and scored. And
that was it.
And that was it. I don't think anybody really realized what the heck was happening, including the umpire, the other team, everybody. No. But he touched home plate, and we had one more run than them.
And you guys came storming out. The guys came storming out in the field, and Stu Josie had an awesome picture. That was one of the best pictures I think he took last year, and there were a lot of great ones. The water bottle, water flying everywhere and stuff. That was pretty cool.
No, but Garrett's he's not 100%, and honestly, I don't know if he ever will be. Elbow injury that had surgery and a shoulder injury that he's nursing right now. I would say arm-wise, he's probably 75%, but swinging the bat 100%, running 100%. But he's an elite defender. He has elite intangibles, and what I mean by that is he just knows the game. He can do those things and swipe a base when you're not watching, and just all the little things that he does really, really well. So, I don't know if he's capable physically right now with his arm to play every single day, but he's going to play a role in some form or fashion. We'll give him the time he needs to get back to 100% and find ways to give him opportunities while he's getting back to health.
His former double play partner in the infield, Ty Sullivan, and for my money, if I had a vote, he would have gotten my vote for team MVP last year. I mean, without Sully, because of the injuries to Andrew Chuba, Chris Law, and of course Garrett Verbanek, without Sully moving to shortstop from second base, I know you know this, but I don't know where you guys would have been last year with so many then freshmen underneath them because of all the injuries. And he just went out and seemingly made every play over there.
Yeah, he is definitely our most valuable player to make that position change and then only make maybe a half dozen errors the entire season.
Ridiculous.
I think he actually didn't make an error until about the 30th game of the year, which was amazing for a guy who made a position change. Tools-wise, he's not going to blow you away. But again, similar to Garrett, he's got intangibles. He just knows the game at a different level than most college players, and that's what's allowing him to compete at such a high level. But yeah, I think he's going to start the season at shortstop for us again, be the glue to our team both defensively and leadership-wise, and he's a fun guy to watch play.
Probably best hair flow in the PSAC too.
Yeah, he's pretty.
Got to be up there.
Yeah, these guys, they're growing their hair out pretty bad right now, which I'm sure we'll cover in a second.
Yeah, we'll talk about the versus cancer here in a moment, the great job you guys are doing there. But talk about the other infielders you have coming back, Maz, specifically at third base, shortstop, and second base. Tom McCarthy stepped up in a huge way last year, put up some really big numbers, an all-conference player, stole a bunch of bases. Ryan Wardropper saw time at third base. Kalen Grimm played a lot. Bailey Jamanis also played a lot last year. He got the walk-off hit to put you guys into the PSAC championship game. I know Bailey is going to be out for this season because of an injury, but Andrew Chuba as well. We didn't really get a chance to see him very much. At least I didn't last year because right before the season started, he hurts his elbow. So how do you kind of see the infield taking shape this year?
Well, we have a lot of interchangeable pieces, and I think that speaks to our athleticism with that group. But, you know, Tom McCarthy is going to be a guy that should be there every day. And you don't want to tell guys or put pressure on them to do what they did last year because it's a new season, but he's got the capability of producing as much, if not more, as last year. He's matured so much. He's got a calm presence, but a very focused approach about him. I think Tom will probably play third, but as you saw last year, he can play second. Chris Law, very, very similar, can play both positions. He's excited. He's had some setbacks along the way, and I expect him to really I don't want to say have a great year. I think he'll have a great year, but I'm just so happy for him to be able to come back and compete. Chuba, again, another interchangeable piece that can play second or third. Kalen Grimm gives us some more depth. He's capable of playing up the middle, short and second. Jamie Rabel is another guy, a freshman, who, he's not quite as ready as some of those older guys, but he could fill a role for us in the middle infield as well. So we have a lot of options. Ryan Wardropper saw some third base last year. He may again this year. Again, it kind of depends on some other guys. And then our first base position will be a competitive one as well. You have experienced, successful guys back like Sam Bilk and MP Buckley, who both contributed in big ways for us last year. And then the emergence of Parker Denny, a guy who redshirted for us last year, has made tremendous progress physically and has just evolved into a potentially elite hitter for us. So he gives us some more options at first base too. So a lot of these upperclassmen, I think they're going to be competing against each other for some time, but I think really complementing each other and give us a lot of options in the infield.
Well, what about your catching position, Maz? Austin Brandell, Jarrett Peters return. I know Brandell won't be 100% for a little while because of off-season shoulder surgery, but when you look at what he did as a freshman, last year, I know kind of an up-and-down year, but he handled the pitching staff very well. And then you get a veteran back this year in Jarrett Peters, who had a huge hit to tie the game against Lockhaven last year in the PSAC tournament, and then Bailey Jamanis ends up winning it for Seton Hill in extra innings. And then, you look at those two guys, and also Dan Wukich, who I know is an experienced leader-type guy that I know has helped out some of the young catchers, and he saw some time late in games last year as a kind of a defensive replacement. And I know you have some promising other guys as well.
We never have enough catching. For as well as Coach Cannon develops our pitching staff of, 14, 16 guys, that's a lot of bullpens that need thrown. So our depth behind the plate is put to good use. I thought Brandell and Peters did a great job complementing each other last year and working together to get a job done behind the plate. Austin is not 100% yet. He's probably another 3 to 4 weeks out from getting his arm back to health. So he'll probably be very, very limited or on the shelf completely, at least for the first part of the season. So you certainly look to Peters to bring some leadership behind the plate. He'll be a guy that's in the mix for us. And we've had 2 other guys really, really develop. Adam Bankovich is a guy that redshirted last year, certainly wasn't ready to play. And this year he certainly is ready to play. He did a great job in the fall. He's worked very hard physically. His skill set has gotten so much better in the last 12 months since his freshman year. We were fortunate to bring in a fantastic player in Tyler Peterson. He's a guy that we thought could pitch and help us on the mound, but he's done such a tremendous job behind the plate. And being a freshman, we don't want to put too much burden on him because I think he's going to help us behind the plate too. So those 3 guys in particular, Bankovich, Peterson, and Jarrett, will kind of handle the duties and work together to have a solid catching group. And like you mentioned, Danny Wukich gives us another experienced option behind the plate, as a defensive guy, probably late game substitution.
It wasn't too long ago that, when you had Chris Miller and now assistant coach Anthony Finelli, those 2 guys, and you had a bunch of injuries to your catching position. And I think the next year you wanted to make sure you had depth there. And I think you guys have had a lot of depth since that point. I remember, you were playing a JV game against Tampa, and didn't Sully catch an inning or something?
Yeah, him and Wardropper, I think.
Yeah, maybe Wardropper. I know Sully was a catcher, I guess, before he came here, right? So,
yeah. Well, we vowed to not be shorthanded behind the plate,
right.
Catching wise. You can move an infielder to outfield or whatever, but to take a guy that's never caught and
just
put him back there. So
that's trouble.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the outfield, Matt. Seems like there's a lot of depth there. Obviously, got to start with Craig Lewis, an amazing freshman season for him last year. And then Mark Colella returns, one of the top power hitters in the PSAC. Nice to see Colton Carney back in a uniform after missing all of last year due to hip surgery. Carl Turner played a lot last year. He's promising. And also, as we briefly mentioned before, I don't know how much playing time we'll get this year, but I know you have big plans for Jordan Fedor as well. And also Evan Myers comes back in the outfield, and there's probably some other guys that, you guys are going to be counting on this year as well.
Well, yeah, Craig's coming off a really fantastic freshman season. Not just being a freshman, but a great season in general. And the thing about him is he's actually gotten a lot better. I thought he was a great player for us last year, and he's taken his game
that's pretty scary for other teams. Exciting for us.
Sure.
Wow.
Sure. Yeah, he's put a lot of work in physically. He's kind of become obsessed with being the best player he can be, similar to a lot of other guys on our team. So we expect Craig to play center field. Colella is a guy that has produced in a lot of different ways during his career. We expect Mark to kind of take his game to another level too. He's been a great run producer for us. Got to cut down on his strikeouts a little bit. But we expect him to be a leader and produce the way he has. The left field spot, to be honest with you, one of the best candidates for that is Ryan Grieco.
Yeah, that's the name that I didn't mention.
Ryan's path with us, he came in as a transfer guy and had a lot of guys ahead of him at the beginning of last year, and he just kept getting a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better to the point where by the end of the year, we're like, we have to play this guy. He's swinging the bat so great. And from where Ryan left last year to where he is now, he is just taking it to a whole nother level. He's become a great hitter for us from the left side. I expect him to be, a staple towards the top of our lineup.
And another guy with speed.
He can run. Good defender. Yeah. And then, like you mentioned, having Carney back is awesome. He brings a lot of different things, great athleticism, solid defender, a little bit of pop on the bat. And then Carl Turner got a taste last year of some good and bad. He had success early and then kind of ran into the freshman slump a little bit, but he's matured a lot. He brings some fantastic athleticism. So we have some really good options. I mean, I think some teams they probably want to make some trades for our outfielders. Right. They're such a talented group. And then Evan Myers is a guy that has I can see kind of evolving as a leadership pinch hit specialist kind of guy. He's become very, very dependable.
I feel like every time he pinch hit, he hit a double last year.
It's so funny. All of our guys say that too.
Yeah. That's what it seems like. So that's definitely good. Definitely good piece to have, for him. And just thinking about it. Can you guys bat 10 this year? Maybe throw two DHs out there, maybe help you a little bit, make the lineups out?
Yeah, I wish. I wish we got enough.
Well, let's talk about the coaching staff, Maz. A terrific job by these guys. Your right-hand man, DJ Cannon, who played at Seton Hill and has been coaching with you now for, since 2013, 12, 13, I'd say, somewhere around there. Yeah. Your right-hand man since then. Anthony Finelli, who demands a lot. I'm sure he's doing just tremendous work with the catchers like he does, and Coach Houck as well. But, Foe demands a lot out of all the guys at all times. And then Mike Houck, the guy behind the curtain, I guess, that works tirelessly, has been with you since the beginning. And it was funny, after the PSAC championship win last year, I had the wireless mic on the field, and I was trying to interview anybody that walked by me, I was interviewing, and Houck walked by me and said, "You're going to interview me?" And I said, "Really?" I said, "I've been begging you for a return liner for our broadcast for how long, and you want me to interview? I'd love to, man. Let's talk a little bit." So I love Houck, but I'm sure you feel pretty blessed with the guys that you have in your staff. Yeah,
absolutely. You mentioned the number of wins that the program has, and DJ's a close second. He's probably been around for about 350, 400 of those. Yeah. But he's done a great job developing this pitching staff to what it is. When you lose what you lost, last year, you kind of trying to search for answers, and I think we found some really good ones that just didn't walk in here the way they were, but he did a great job developing them. And him and Fo together, I think, have taken our team to a different level physically. I get a lot of compliments from other people, like when our guys get off the bus, that there's no mistake
right.
that there's some pretty physical guys that work really hard, and that has a lot to do with the leadership that Fo and DJ provide in the development of our guys. And when you look around, there's a lot of talent on this team too, and that again goes back to those guys and the countless days and hours they spend on the road in the summertime recruiting and identifying who the right guys are for our program. So they make these guys go each and every day. They certainly make my job easy, but they're great role models for our players too. I mean, they demand excellence, but they also commit to it themselves. And then to have Halk around and the sacrifices that he makes for our program and for our players. He doesn't get paid a dime, but he's so passionate about Seton Hill baseball, and you can see that spill over to the success he wants our players to have. And
again, 4 wins away from number 500. Will you be in the dugout for 500 this year, you think?
I thought I was going to be in the dugout for 400, and I was on a lawn chair up in the woods somewhere.
Sipping some lemonade or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, I hope so.
Yeah, it'd be nice to witness it from the dugout, but you never know.
We'll talk after, all right?
Yeah.
All right. Talk about the schedule, Coach. 3 games at North Carolina this weekend. You guys play a very good Shippensburg team. You had some crazy games with them last year in the regular season and in the PSAC tournament. And then you play West Liberty this Sunday. 8 games in Florida, where you'll be playing in a different location this year, not far away from where we had played before, but a different place. And you also have a very interesting 3-game series with the Millersville Marauders on March 17th and 18th before PSAC play starts. So talk about the early schedule and how that 3-game series with Millersville came together.
Well, the Millersville series, I just got on the schedule because I figured we could bring you out to broadcast against their we just have a broadcast series, see who can win it, right?
Well, I'd sweep them. I'm gonna bring everything, baby.
Nice.
I'll bring all my guns. I already know my lineup.
No, but when you look at our schedule, like if there's one team you look back at last year and be like, geez, I don't want to play those guys again, it's probably Shippensburg, just because it was like a 14-12 game the first time, and the second game went like a million innings.
Yeah. Our mood lighting just turned off. Dave Oliverio is going to help us out with that. This is a very high-tech building, folks.
There we go.
Thanks, Dave. We're good now, I think. Yeah, it's a very high-tech building we're in.
It
really is. I mean, it was.
It's like a timer delay or something.
Yeah, I guess so. There's so many buttons in this room. I don't even want to press anything because I don't want to have something.
This is
or something.
On those 30-degree baseball game days. This is the place to watch.
Oh yeah,
that's up here.
George Biddle. If this thing was here when George was here, it'd have been up here.
They don't have a bar. They don't have a bar in here.
That's true. Yeah, none of that. Just like vitamin water out there. I don't think he would have wanted that. But anyway, please continue.
Yeah. So our schedule. Yeah, we put this first weekend together. Be able to play Ship twice. Who I think it could be a big-time sleeper team in the region, let alone the PSAC. They bring about just about everybody back from last year aside from their first baseman. They're going to be an outstanding team. So we will get tested right from the beginning, and then playing West Liberty on Sunday, who is one of the top teams in the Mountain East Conference. Mm-hmm. Heading back to Florida this year, different location. We're excited about a great facility in Kissimmee. It's the old Astros complex. Some familiar teams down there, Wayne State, Grand Valley, Westchester. Florida is what it is. It's a grind. It's 8 games in 7 days. And then we have a gap between spring break and the beginning of the PSAC schedule. Obviously, all the PSAC teams do, and we want to fill that with the best competition possible, and we were able to get a series with Millersville. It'll be a return series. They'll come here next year.
And it doesn't hurt to play – well, obviously, you want to play good teams. You've done that every year that I've been around the program, like Tampa every year, although this year not playing Tampa, I don't know why that is. You beat them last year.
Yeah, they couldn't fit us on the schedule.
You beat them last year, and they couldn't fit you on the schedule this year, even though you've pretty much played them every other year.
That's right.
That's curious. But anyway, you play good competition for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons has to be for that Atlantic regional tournament at the end of the year. I know they take into account how good the teams are that you play against, the opponent records, and if you win those games too against Millersville, then obviously it helps even more, right?
Yeah. It is. Strength of schedule is
huge. That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
It's a huge factor in getting those bids, but unfortunately, as a coach, and I do the scheduling about a year and a half in advance, and it doesn't work out the way you hope. And sometimes it works out better. Like for instance, a couple of years ago, maybe about 3-4 years ago, Coker goes to the World Series. And so as soon as I saw them playing the World Series, I called their coach up and said, "Hey, in a year and a half, do you want to play?" Thinking, must be great competition. So we scheduled them, and the year we scheduled them, they finished below 500. Right. So it kind of bites you a little bit. And then in Florida, for the most part, you just got to play whoever's down there
at the time.
Last year our schedule in Florida was unbelievable in terms of the strength of schedule. I didn't get to pick those teams. It just worked out. And there's been years in the past where we look on paper, it's like, wow, these teams are really good, and they end up finishing 500 that season, and it drops your. But we've been fortunate. It's worked out. Alderson, Broadus, West Liberty, some of these non-conference teams have really upped our strength of schedule, and it's positioned us well for the regional.
And these are the teams you have some relationships with because you used to play them.
That's right.
Year when you were in the old WVIC.
Yeah, and Shepherd is a team.
Too,
we have a home and home midweek with Shepherd this year.
Yeah.
Who 2-3-time defending Mountain East champion, and they're the regional every year. So we're hoping that'll help.
Yeah, and you have some redemption in your. Minds.
They put it on us pretty good
last year. Yeah,
they did.
Maz, before we wrap up here, a couple more things to get to. I wanted to talk about the coaching tree that continues to get better, to get bigger, I should say, from former guys that either played here or coached here, or actually both. And I just want to mention these guys that are out there coaching, whether it's college or high school as well, some of these guys. But Chad Fitzgerald right now is the head coach at Heidelberg, and Chad, one of the first Griffins here, right?
He was probably 2004 recruiting class, very first class, probably one of the first 5 kids that ever committed to Seton Hill.
Oh, that's awesome. So Chad Fitzgerald is the head coach at Heidelberg. Tyler Mortar, who just graduated, the assistant coach at Cabrini College. Brandon Josie, we're going to be talking about Stu here in a second, his dad, but Brandon played here for 2 years, coached here for 2 years. He is now the assistant coach at Oberlin. Sam Basham, I saw on Facebook not long ago, recently hired as the assistant coach at Coker. Tom DeAngelis, love Tommy, assistant coach at Baldwin Wallace, played and coached here. Dan Abernathy, who I actually just heard from earlier this week, Dan was just hired as the head coach at Wheeling Jesuit. We actually had an opportunity, surprisingly, on February 20th or 19th, whenever it was, earlier this week to do Seton Hill softball on Tuesday because it was so warm outside. And I gave a shout-out to Dan because Seton Hill was playing Wheeling Jesuit in a non-conference game. I give a shout-out to Dan and congratulate him, great kid and everything. I said, if he's listening, not really thinking he was. He was. He sent me a text message. He said, thanks, man. We're listening between workouts or whatever. So nice. I got to give a shout-out to Dan. Also, Austin Sleek, assistant coach at Bethany. Of course, DJ and Foe here at Seton Hill. And then the Butler guy himself, where else would Cody Harold be than the head coach for the summer team, the Butler Blue Sox? And is Cody helping Butler High School as well?
Head coach.
Oh, he's a head coach. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So where else would he be after getting standing ovations in the PSAC tournament when you guys played in Butler? But wow, just an amazing group there. And I know there's probably some other guys that are in the high school ranks as well.
Yeah, there's quite a few guys that have been in high school baseball as well. But it's really cool to see those guys. I'd like to think they're still doing that because they had a great experience as college players themselves, and they want to provide that same experience to other people. Great group of guys there. It's pretty neat to see how that tree has grown, and it kind of opens a lot of doors, hopefully, for guys in the future. We always have guys that graduate that have that passion. Hey, I want to try coaching, or I want to stay in college baseball. Well, now this just kind of grows the tree and gives us more connections to hopefully provide more chances for our guys to get back to the college game.
And that's maybe a thing people don't think about, or maybe even the kids don't think about when they come here. But, going through the program 4 years, I'm sure you do anything in your power to help if they want to be a coach, whether it's college or high school. You do anything in your power to try to find them a spot, right?
Oh, absolutely. as you know, it's hard to get into college coaching, especially college baseball, where you actually get paid to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, those positions are so hard, and it does come down to connections and who you know, and hopefully these are connections that'll benefit players in the future, and not just coaching, but I just helped a couple of our guys get interviews with some really good accounting and insurance companies because a couple of our alumni are working at those companies, and they call me, hey, do you have any really good guys that are graduating business degrees? So it's all part of the experience we want to provide for them here.
Also got to give a shout out to Ryan Hayden, who's with Hempfield. So got to give a shout out to him because I forgot about. I'm trying to think of all the guys. I know there's guys we're missing here at high school, but Hayden's just down the road. So
yeah, we have a ton. Steve Long at North Hills, Brandon Whitfield at Mount Lebanon. I know Brad Comport was coaching at North Allegheny for a few years. Jeff Pinger, I believe, is coaching at Mount Lebanon as well. I know I'm missing some.
Right, yeah, I put you on the spot there, but definitely. Coach, you guys are partnering and doing this fantastic thing again this year, and it really is amazing. You're partnering once again with the Versus Cancer Foundation to raise money for the fight against pediatric cancer. 50% of the proceeds will go to the national cancer research, and the other half will go to the local pediatric programs. And you guys are off to an amazing start with this. I mean, the season hasn't even began yet, and you've raised a lot of money for the fight against pediatric cancer.
I think it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow that we've had the campaign going. I didn't check today, but we are somewhere up around $6,000.
$6,000
in less than 2 weeks. And really, it's just through social media like Twitter and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the campaign will go for 2 months. It'll kind of culminate with our head shaving event, which will take place April 21st after our home doubleheader against Pitt Johnstown, which we'll win.
Yeah, of course. You got to win it, and then to be able to do it.
You got to.
For sure.
But yeah, it's we set a goal of $5,000, and I told the guys the other day, like, that now has become $10,000.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're at like 110% of your goal already. So.
We did it in 2015, was the first and only time we partnered with Versus Cancer. It was an incredible event. Our guys raised about $9,000, a big head shaving, which Stu covered with video and stuff. Yeah. But it's... The money's great. It goes to a fantastic cause, but more than anything else, it's an experience for our guys. It's a reminder that when they show up every day and they're sore and they're tired, and baseball's such a hard sport, and they strike out, that, man, it's really not that bad, and they can still do great things for people that can't do it for themselves. So, we just hope that our guys get a lot out of participating in something that's much bigger than themselves.
Yeah, kids should never, ever, ever have to go through, what they go through that have cancer, and it's just great you guys are helping. And we actually hosted Seton Hill and Westmoreland Sports Network hosted a shootout a couple of weeks ago, well, actually about a month ago, I guess now, and all the proceeds went to St. Jude Research Hospital. So, I can't. You just can't bear to see the pictures that you sometimes see on Twitter of the kids going through that. But they're the real heroes. The kids going through that and fighting against cancer. How do you see the PSAC stacking up this year? I had a lot of good teams at the top, and IUP got better last year. Clarion, I think, got better last year. So how do you see it stacking up?
So this will be our 14, 15, 16. This will be our 5th year in the conference. And, there's been some great teams, some great players. We're sitting here watching a couple guys that we played against a few years ago are now, pitching at the big league level. Yeah. So
and Altavilla to be one of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the caliber of the PSAC. But in 5 years, this might be the best I've ever anticipated it being. I think 2 years ago, there was like 9 guys drafted out of the PSAC. Millersville goes to the national championship game, so the quality was pretty good. Last year, I think a lot of the teams were young. Even though Westchester won the national championship,
right.
You didn't have as many pro guys coming out last year. But all those teams that were young last year are really good this year, bring a lot of guys back. Mercyhurst brings back a absolutely loaded pitching staff. Slippery Rock brings back their best players and didn't lose much. IUP is a team that really went to the next level last year and bring back everybody. just on the Western side, there's 3 teams that are probably going to be even better than last year. When you look over on the other side, there were some young teams. Bloomsburg and East Stroudsburg were young. Millersville was very young. They lost a lot from their World Series team. And Ship basically didn't lose anybody. They bring everybody back. Yeah. And then you got the national champions, who I'm sure have just reloaded. So it's a year that I think will be up. Now, next year, the PSAC might be down a little bit. A lot of senior heavy teams, but it's going to be as tough, if not tougher, than years past.
Westchester is the only Atlantic region team to win a national championship. They've done it twice in 2012, I believe, right? And then last year. I know you've always had the confidence that you guys could win a national championship, but to see another Atlantic team do what they did, and also Millersville go a couple of years ago, I mean, that has to just make your confidence even higher that, hey, anybody in this region can win a national title.
Yeah, I think it makes it realistic for our guys.
Right.
Just the thought, or when you talk about winning a national championship, I don't know how realistic that is at some places. I don't know if we're going to see Pitt and Omaha,
Yeah,
but when we talk about it with our guys, like competing for a national championship, they look, just on the other side of the state and a team that we beat, in the conference tournament, and then they run the table. That makes our guys be able to connect with, yeah, we can absolutely do that. They did it, and we show that we can beat them. But Dan, it's just getting hot at the right time. Yeah. Playing your best baseball
Staying
when it
healthy,
counts.
getting hot, and being good enough to compete, and all that combination. Yeah. For sure, you can get there. Before we finish up our season preview show, I have to give a huge, huge thank you and shout out to Stu Josie. Stu, and we mentioned Brandon a little earlier. A lot of people know this, but for some of our new viewers, Brandon Josie was recruited from California as a JUCO player. One of Maz's former graduate assistants, Roberto Saenz, was a coach in California, coached at Brandon's old JUCO school. And so Brandon transferred to Seton Hill, played here for 2 years, and was a graduate assistant here at Seton Hill for 2 years. So now he's at Oberlin. I believe he's in his second year now at Oberlin, so he hasn't played here for a couple of years. And Stu, who is a professional photographer, actually on the side, photographs 49ers games, Oakland Raider games. He is going to be in Florida again this year to document the Florida trip. And I know how excited he was. He said how invested he is because he knows that, you guys use those pictures. You do, I do, David Oliverio and Jason Green, Sports Information, use his pictures throughout the season, and just the stuff that he captures is just amazing. With what he does, you'll probably hear his beside our crowd bike down in Florida. But Brandon hasn't played here for a couple of years, and Stu wants to go again from California to Florida. I think it's just another reason this baseball program is so special, that they had such a connection with this program that Stu wants to do it.
Yeah, it probably helped that Brandon was here 2 years in his second season. We went to the World Series.
What he did for that, the combination of everything, and that video that he made with our calls and everything, that was one of the coolest things we
gave Stu some really good opportunities, and he took advantage of them. But you're right, Dan. We are so our guys and me in particular, we're so lucky and so blessed to have these people that are so invested in our program. I mean, the combination of what you and Stu do makes the experience for our parents, our players, and our alumni second to none. There is nobody in the PSAC or even Division II that has this. And now I know you haven't mentioned yet, but now the opportunity for video broadcast here at Seton Hill for baseball, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a first-class operation that you run, obviously, at Westmoreland Sports. And then Stu, I feel like, is just the flavoring and the icing on the cake that kind of takes the media experience for our players and our team to a whole different level. So we're excited to have Stu make the trip from California back to Florida for 3 or 4 days and be able to document the fun spring break trip for our team.
And all the pictures that we have been having displayed here during the season preview have been courtesy of Stu, so thank you so much to him. Maz did mention about video, and for those of you that maybe missed our test run, if you will, I think it went pretty well, though. Our test run went pretty well. Seton Hill hosted La Roche in the fall for a couple of meaningless games. It meant something certainly to the players, and there were umpires and uniforms and the scoreboard and stuff, so that was all good. And we had a great time. It was really hot, but it was a fun time to do it. They're still archived on our website if you missed them, westmorelandsports.com. So we got some new equipment this year, courtesy of Seton Hill, and we were able to have a center field camera and a camera behind the plate, so when the ball's put into play, obviously just like you're watching the game on TV, you can see the players fielding the ball, that whole thing. We also had graphics on there, and we had instant replay. So between games, when umpire blows a call in game one, you can walk them up to the to where we are in the bleachers there on top in the press area and kind of show them what they missed, or maybe right after they do it.
Yeah,
the challenge.
I've actually. This is the first year for our video broadcasts, but I've been telling the umpires for like 3 years now, like, hey, we have this on video, and I'm going to show you how wrong you were. Right. Meanwhile, we never really had it.
There was no video.
Now I can actually back that up.
Yes, you can. We can show them the replay. That'll make them real happy, I'm sure. So the Florida trip's going to be audio only. Probably the playoff games, unfortunately, are going to be audio only, although Dave and I had talked about perhaps talking with the PSAC to see if they're maybe interested in us broadcasting some games on video in their tournament. We'll see. And then, so during the regular season, we'll have select games on video. They won't all be on video. We're going to try to do as many as possible, but because of the weather, if there's even a chance of rain, we just can't take that chance, unfortunately. So we're definitely going to have, I don't know, maybe 3 doubleheaders or so, or more. We'll see how the weather cooperates, but we're really excited about it. We're happy with the feedback we got. I got some texts from some guys after we did it. Tom McCarthy said it was like watching the SEC network, so thanks T-Mac. I appreciate that. So that was pretty cool. But we really just want to add to the experience every year. For all of the sports that we do, we try to enhance our broadcast every year, and especially for this baseball program, it's definitely special. Something we cherish being a part of, and so hopefully people will enjoy watching. I mean, we got to get that Mercyhurst doubleheader on video. Even if it's raining, maybe we'll figure something out. We'll put we'll get ponchos and everything and cover all the equipment and see what we can do for that one, for sure. But and for some others as well. But,
well, I think, was it 2 years ago? Thankfully, David Oliverio, I believe, captured the walk-off against Mercyhurst.
It's Miller time the walk-off grand slam.
Pretty awesome video of that.
When Greeny yelled Yahtzee in the background as soon as he hit it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Baz, it's always fun. We could be talking a heck of a lot more, but we'll be talking down in Florida. But before you guys get there, good luck against Shippensburg and West Liberty. Definitely some good games to start the season. And again, we'll see you in Florida, buddy. Have a good trip and good luck this weekend.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this season and certainly looking forward to spending many more days with you.
Many more therapy sessions with our pregame show.
That's right.
There you go. That is Coach Mark Marizaldi, the only head coach in the Seton Hill baseball program's history. And another thank you to the guy off the camera looking very dapper today, David Oliverio, here as we bring it to you from the Boyle Sciences Center with the Seton Hill new baseball field in the background. And again, if you did miss those video broadcasts that we had in the fall, that'll also give you a great idea of what the new field looks like if you haven't seen it yet. So I'm Dan Flickinger for the Westmoreland Sports Network. We say good luck to the Seton Hill baseball program this season, and you can listen and watch Seton Hill baseball right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Have a good day, everybody, and that's it from the Hill.